My name is Casey Eramenthia Escamilla, and I do not believe that your culture is real. In fact, I know that your culture does not exist because in the modern West 2026, there is only one singular world culture, one homogenous, lazy, underwhelming monoculture that has spewed its greasy, oily tendons to every shadowed corner of the world and has encompassed every community culture that ever existed prior to 1958. I've been wanting to make this video for a little while now, and I was finally going to bite the bullet and sit down and put some tender loving care into it over the weekend. I was going to be more kind and sensitive in my delivery of some very cold, hard facts. But then the weekend came around and I got into a 3-day debate with the very person who brought me here in the first place, and so that all kind of went out the window. And now I just kind of want to rant about things, and so it's coming off the top of my head, it is coming off the tongue, and however it lands, because I'm unhappy, and so I want to share the misery around, because misery truly does love company. First and foremost, you do not have a culture, or rather, you do have a culture, and it just so happens to be the exact same culture that exists everywhere else in the entire world. A singular chicken nugget. That would be the perfect proxy deity for your homogenous monoculture, or a chicken tender if you would prefer. I'm not picky, you can decide. All that really matters is that you all worship at the altar of 2 conjoined golden arches and a crusty little package of processed chicken slime. That chicken nugget is your culture. It is the proxy of your culture. It's the only one you've ever known, and it's the only one you'll ever have. Everything else is just a performance put on for an audience. It doesn't exist. It's a cosplay. It's not real. See, culture is your lived daily experience. It is not something that you inherit, and it's not a genetic trait. It is what you do naturally in the privacy of your own home when there is nobody around to perceive you doing it. And so if you wear traditional clothing to a cultural event a few times a year, but you wear blue jeans every other day of your life, then the traditional clothing is not part of your culture. You are cosplaying as something that you have no connection to, you've never experienced, and you never will. And even in a lot of cases, the very existence of the cultural clothing never existed in the state that people present it at. A huge amount of what passes as cultural practice in your 2026 modern Western world is legible first. People choose clothes and food and ritual practices for the benefit of the aesthetics to an audience, real or perceived. Even if it's just a critic in their mind, it is only done for that person's benefit. There is zero internal logic to the practice itself, to the culture that they're claiming that it came from. In a lot of these cases, the practices that they're putting forth were never part of the original culture to begin with. There were entire languages in which they're going around saying, oh, you know, this is from this It's not. It is a Kulang language. They made it up, okay? I know this for a fact. I would have known it anyway, but I know this beyond reasonable doubt because I live in an Australian Aboriginal minority town, and I am friends with the lady who is actively making up the language for the local people. It doesn't exist. Sits down and she writes out the words. She makes it up from her brain, and then she walks around saying this is the oldest language in the entire world that has ever existed, even though it has existed and is less usable than Tolkien Elvish by a huge margin. But no, we have to give it credence because she sat down and she made it up, and now apparently it is representative of a language that died 400 years ago. Weddings, the traditional modern Western weddings, they're not a thing. They were only created less than 100 years ago. The ceremony and the wearing of the white dress. And if we go to Scotland and we look at the clan tartan patterns, they're even younger. What? Clothing is just the most visible marker of the problem. Run the same logic through food, language, music, religious practice, social ritual, and you'll get the same thing time and time again, that it doesn't exist, it probably never existed, and that it is purely for performance sake. If you only pray once a year at Christmas, then Christianity is not your religion. If you only speak your ancestral language at family reunions, then that language is not your language. If your grandmother's recipes come out once a year at very specific occasions, that food is not your culture. And even in cases where things are done and performed in ways that on the surface look like they are traditional rituals and they abide by historic standards, they're still not real. Take Tibetan sky burials, for example, where you go, someone dies, and they take the bodies out and leave them on pillars for the birds, the vultures, to come and eat the bodies. On the surface, they still do that, but do they really? If at the end of the day, you're gonna go and collect the body and put it into a coffin and bury it anyway? So the vultures aren't even going to get to it. It is symbolic. It's not cultural. It's not how it was done. It's just stupid. I hate it. Like most problems I identify in the modern West, it is a direct cause of widespread representative democracy. The moment your countries either adopt or have democracy forced upon them, you're screwed. You may as well kiss your culture goodbye because it's never coming back. Which unfortunately is virtually everywhere on Earth at the moment, is a widespread representative democracy. And if it's not now, it has been in the past. And if it is not completely, then overwhelmingly the goal is to move towards it, which is the same with the monoculture, is that even if in very few cases, in very rare places, the local community has managed to hold on by the tips of their fingertips to the smallest shred of their local customs and culture, the ultimate goal is to strip them of that and have them join fully into a monocultural society. Countries copying a template that isn't theirs and applying it at a civilizational scale. Widespread representative democracy, by its very nature of existence, discourages and discredits local customs and cultures. There's no other way around it. Democracy is the single most exploited, most deliberately copied by the non-originators of the system framework in human history. And you can see it. You can take a look around your very communities that you live in and see what effect that has had on you. Because if you think about it, democracy, widespread representative democracy in its current form, has only existed since the end of World War II. And look how far your communities have fallen under it. It is a disgrace, and it will be the end of you. That is because liberal democracy plus market capitalism represent the terminal point of ideological evolution. Competing systems are just historical detours that eventually collapse back to the same convergent model. That the near-universal aspiration towards democratic legitimacy, regardless of the fact that it is, an authoritarian state holding a sham election that everybody is aware of, is evidence that there's now only one legitimate script that everybody is measured against, willingly or not. Everybody, politically speaking, wants to be seen as a democracy, and so everybody, they will mimic the democracies, and any local culture, bye-bye. You were gone. You've been gone 80 years because you all need to be democracies, at least in the eyes of world politics. That's why even China runs elections at local level. Why Iran holds presidential votes despite a supreme leader holding ultimate lifetime power. Why no state, virtually no state in the entire world, will call itself anything but a republic anymore, despite the fact it very obviously isn't one. The legitimizing form of democracy has become universal even when the substance hasn't. And so the easiest way to look like you are towing the Democratic Party frickin' line is to evolve your culture into what they say is what a democratic society looks like. Hence the birth of the global monoculture that you are all a part of. But ultimately it doesn't matter anyway, because it doesn't matter that there is no legitimate pure culture anymore, that you're all part of the same machine, just cogs going around and around and around without stop, Because the only reason that you're interested in any culture anyway is because you get social credit for doing so. You cherry pick the pieces from a culture that you were never part of in an attempt to get credit for where you are. But that's just because, and you know damn well, that none of you are ever going to do anything unique or exciting with your lives. Your lives are all identical from one to the next. You're born, you go to school for way too long, way too long, which is just another part of the democratic machine, in which they keep you in school for about 10 years longer than they should, because in all honesty, you should finish your formative education by the time you're about 13 or 14. By the time you graduate from college, university, whatever you call it, where you come from, your youth is basically over and you're saddled with debt. You need to go straight into whatever you're trying to do. You have no chance to explore different things and figure out exactly what you want to do or have any fun or adventure. And then the adventures that you do go on, oh my god, travel. I know I talked about this in my last video, but I'm going to talk about it again. Travel is a joke. Your form of travel, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're going to the Amazon rainforest, you are still in Disney World. You are a Disney adult. You just don't know it yet. In fact, I would much prefer to talk to Disney adults than to talk to you about your adventures, because at least the Disney adults are self-aware enough to know who and what they are and what they're spending their money on. You just go to some kind of location, a tourist location that you claim makes you so worldly that you need to stick up your butt, and you take a photo in the same tourist destination that 30 other thousand people have taken their photo in that week alone. You gather around with 300 people to look at a portrait that they specifically only opened for 3 hours a week to draw that much attention to it, because you're an idiot. In conclusion, you have no culture. What you claim to be your culture is indifferent to being an emo in 2006. It is a way to differ yourself from everyone else and try to get praise for how unique you live your life, because you know that there is nothing unique about you or your life. You are the exact same as everyone else. It's the same reason why everyone, especially in, rich modern West societies, is so utterly obsessed with being oppressed. My god, what is wrong with you? As someone who's been through a total and civil war, who has lost my children, everything that entails, why would you want to be oppressed? Why are you so desperate to experience oppression? My god, get over yourselves. I'm having a breakdown. Do you know how privileged you have to be? Inherently privileged you have to be in order to have a mental breakdown? Of course you don't, because you play at it. You play at mental breakdowns, you play at oppression, you play at absolutely everything in place of having any life of your own, having any life experiences that are different from anyone else around you. It's just, y'all can be insufferable at times. Am I resentful? Yes. I think it would be impossible for me not to be resentful. Even if you weren't so annoying, just the fact that I'm here against my will makes me resentful. I don't hate being in the modern West every single day of my life. I myself have fallen quite rapidly victim to the monoculture in and of itself as well. Even when I think about doing things from my own culture, I'm like, oh no, I'll do it tomorrow, and then tomorrow never comes, or if it does, I do it half-heartedly because I want to go back to watching Netflix and eating chips. I resent that as well, so I can understand exactly why you all resent that and want something more for your life than, unfortunately, democracy is ever going to give you. And sometimes I just want to cry about it. I don't, but I've spent the last 3 days in my bed, kind of like Sailor Moon, fighting evil by moonlight, and eating my feelings by daylight. Just sitting in my bed and thinking about how much I miss how things were, where it came from. And I was thinking about the Catholic woman who, when I was living in my friend's town, it was his people. And then there was also a group of Catholic people who had been living there for like 300 years. And there was a lady, and she would bring me tea in bed every morning, and she would set my hair and wash my hair and things like that. I was like, damn, I really, really miss that. He's just a dick to put me here. And again, it's not even here. It's not here in the bottom west. If it was that simple, I'd be like, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. I can sit, okay? No one else can sit as well as I can sit. I can sit at an airport lounge for such a long time without complaining. But what I can't do, if you're gonna put me somewhere, at least, like, I don't ask him for anything. All I ask from him here, I'm not asking him to, like, oh, let's go. I want you to, change the situation right now. Okay, you need to do what you don't need to do, because there is no need. But you're going to do what you're going to do. So all I ask is that you just don't make it harder than it needs to be. But no, because he's lazy, he just puts me in the same place as friggin' Ronald and the rest of the Vic whenever he's here. Like, at least put me somewhere good. At least don't make it harder than it has to be. Anyway, I think that is my rant drawing to a close. Yeah, maybe one day I will film a different video, in which case I sit down and unpack this in greater depth and greater sensitivity and greater detail than I'm doing tonight, because despite everything that I've just said in this video, that was not the actual point of what I was doing tonight. The point that I was doing was I was basically crashing out. It's been 3 very long days of just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Because A refuses to come and see me ever. He's come twice in the entire time that I have lived out here in this shitty little town in the outback, which is 7 years now. So it is a good long time. But at the same time, I can't really blame him for that, because I did tell him that I had a dream about the two of us, and it was back during the Second War, which is when I met him, and we were camping out in the woods, and he was eating food, and I was asking him what his favorite food was, and then I asked if I could look at his pelvis, and then I cracked it in half like it was a pistachio nutshell. And so I think that kind of scared him a little bit, and now he won't come. I still kind of want to do that to him when we get home, but we shall see.